If you want to know how the modern banking system quietly extracts well over $600,000 from the average middle-class family, you literally just have to look at the roof over your head.
Right. It's hiding in plain sight.
Exactly. So welcome to today's deep dive. We're basically tearing the American dream down to the studs today. Because from childhood, you're conditioned, we're almost heavily programmed to believe that buying a house is the ultimate, undeniable sign of financial success.
Oh, absolutely. The narrative is everywhere.
Right. You climb the corporate ladder, you scrape together a down payment, you buy the house with the yard, and boom, you've arrived.
You've supposedly made the safest investment possible.
Yeah, but today we are stripping away all that sentimentality because we're looking at a highly controversial, just mathematically ruthless claim rooted in behavioral economics. And that claim is that the house you are sitting in right now is, it's actually the biggest financial trap of your entire life.
It's a brutal reality check,
Yeah.
but honestly, it's an entirely necessary one. The math simply demands it.
So how do we even begin to unpack that? Because people love their houses.
Well, to understand how this trap operates, you have to completely separate your emotion from real estate.
Which is hard to do.
Incredibly hard. But we have to stop looking at a house as a home, as a sanctuary with family memories, holiday dinners, a fresh coat of paint, and start evaluating it purely through the cold, objective lens of cash flow.
Okay, I want to get straight to the foundational premise here because it really does not pull any punches. It completely redefines what a house actually is in strictly financial terms.
Look, let me be unapologetically blunt here. A primary residence is not an asset.
Wait, really?
It is not an asset. That is the greatest financial myth of the modern era. A primary residence is a 30-year liability.
Okay, hold on. I have to fight you on this right out of the gate.
Go ahead.
Calling a house a liability, that goes against literally a century of conventional financial wisdom. Real estate is universally considered the absolute foundation of American wealth.
So they say.
But, when you rent, you get nothing back. When you buy, you freeze your housing costs, right?
Right.
Rent goes up forever, but a fixed rate mortgage doesn't. So calling that a liability just feels, fundamentally wrong.
It feels wrong because you're emotionally attached to a definition of wealth that the banks sold you.
The bank sold it to me.
Exactly. Let's look at the actual mechanics, not the marketing. You have to understand the fundamental accounting definition of these terms.
Okay, define them then.
An asset puts money into your pocket every single month without you having to trade labor for it.
Yep.
A liability, on the other hand, constantly, relentlessly drains your cash flow.
But isn't that just like the basic cost of shelter? You have to pay to live somewhere, whether you rent or own.
You do. But a primary home requires a mortgage. It requires property taxes that increase as the home's value goes up.
Right.
It requires homeowners insurance, maintenance, constant repairs. The water heater breaks. The roof needs replacing.
Yeah, the joys of homeownership.
Exactly. Every single month, this physical structure takes money out of your bank account. You freeze your principal and interest payments, sure, but you do not freeze taxes, insurance, or maintenance.
I see.
So by strict, undeniable definition, it is a liability dragging on your liquidity.
Okay. I see the distinction between cash flowing assets and cash draining expenses. But let's play devil's advocate here. Even if I accept it's a liability month to month, the real scale of that drain seems manageable. It's just the cost of upkeep.
And that right there is exactly what the lending institutions want you to believe.
What do you mean?
The true scale of this cash drain isn't the broken water heater or the property taxes. The real devastation is mathematically baked right into the loan structure you sign at the closing table.
The loan structure itself.
Yes. The trap is perfectly designed from day one. And this brings us to the central villains of the entire housing market.
Which are?
The amortization schedule and the mortgage.
Wow, okay. You're pronouncing those words, amortization schedule and mortgage, with such deliberate, heavy precision. You're talking about standard loan documents as if they're like predatory mechanisms.
Because they are the ultimate mechanisms of wealth extraction. Let us dive deeply into the exact math of the amortization schedule on a standard 30-year mortgage.
Let's do it. Break it down.
This is where the banking system executes its masterstroke. The banks deliberately, mathematically front-load the interest.
Okay, let's break down the how and the why of that for the listener, because I think most people just assume it's like a simple pie chart. You borrow an amount, the bank charges a flat fee, and you pay an equal chunk of your house off every month for 30 years.
That is the illusion. It completely relies on the public's widespread misunderstanding of how reverse compound interest works.
Reverse compound interest.
Yes. When you make your first payment on a loan, the bank calculates your monthly interest based on the entire remaining principal balance.
Right, which is huge on day one.
Exactly. Because your balance is at its absolute highest on day one, the interest they charge you is mathematically at its absolute highest.
Oh, wow.
So for the first 10 to 15 years of a 30-year mortgage, the vast majority of your monthly payment goes straight to the bank's profit ledger. It does not go toward paying down your house.
Wait, the vast majority?
We're handing over thousands of dollars a month, and only a microscopic fraction is actually buying your bricks. The rest is a fee just to hold the debt.
Let's run the numbers on this. Let's take a highly realistic scenario for a middle-class buyer today. Say you buy a $500,000 house and you lock in a 7% interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Do the math. Tell me what happens at the end of the 30 years.
Okay, I'm looking at the calculation right now, and it is staggering. You buy this house for $500,000. You make your payments every month for 360 months.
Right?
By the time that 30-year mortgage is finally paid off, you haven't paid $500,000. You've paid over $1.1 million. Over $600,000 of that was purely interest.
Let that number sink in. Over $1.1 million to acquire a $500,000 physical structure. Let me state the reality of this math with absolute, unapologetic clarity.
I'm listening.
You bought one house for yourself and a second house for the bank.
You bought one house for yourself and a second house for the bank.
That is, that's a gut punch of a statistic.
It's the harsh truth.
But wait, I have to challenge this. What about inflation? Inflation eats fixed debt. If I lock in a mortgage today, inflation makes that debt significantly cheaper to pay off in year 20 or year 25.
Yeah.
Plus, paying down that principal eventually is a form of forced savings.
Forced savings,
Yeah, you're building equity, and eventually you own the asset free and clear.
Look, your argument about inflation eating the debt is mathematically valid, but it completely fails to account for the scale of the premium you're paying.
How so? Yes, you are building equity through forced savings.
Yeah.
But at what cost? You are paying an exorbitant $600,000 premium just for the privilege of that forced savings account.
Okay, that's fair.
If an investment broker offered you a guaranteed savings account, but told you that you had to pay them $600,000 in non-recoverable fees over 30 years just to use it, you'd report them for fraud.
Yeah, I'd probably call the cops.
Yet, when a bank does it and calls it a mortgage with an amortization schedule, the middle class throws a party, signs the paperwork, and posts a picture with the keys on social media.
Oh man, that completely shatters the romanticized view of sitting at that closing table. It's not a victory lap, it's a massive transfer of future labor to a financial institution.
Exactly.
But this raises a massive contradiction. If the mechanics of the loan structure are this undeniably terrible, why is everyone so utterly convinced they are getting rich in real estate? My neighbor just sold his house for $200,000 more than he paid for it a decade ago. He looks like a financial genius right now.
He looks like a genius because you and he are blinded by the wrong numbers. The entire culture focuses exclusively on the gross sale price and ignores absolutely everything else.
Which brings us to the psychological blind spot at the center of all this. This is the concept of the phantom wealth illusion. Let's look at my neighbor who bought for $300,000 and sold for $500,000 10 years later. To him, that's a clean $200,000 profit.
All right, let's do the actual accounting. The phantom costs are the silent killers of that perceived wealth. First, subtract the massive front-loaded interest on the amortization schedule over that decade.
Okay.
He probably paid well over $100,000 just in interest to the bank.
Right. Because of reverse compound interest, the first 10 years are almost entirely bank profit. Okay, so half his profit is already gone.
Exactly. Then add a minimum of 1 to 1.5% of the home's value and annual maintenance costs over 10 years. New HVAC systems, roof repairs, plumbing fixes.
Oh yeah, the new roof alone is a fortune.
Then subtract a decade of property taxes, which increased every time his home's assessed value went up.
Ouch.
And finally, the grand finale, the 6% real estate agent fee he had To pay off the gross $500,000 sale price, we have to liquidate the asset. That's $30,000 instantly vaporized at closing.
So when you calculate all of those together, the interest, the decade of maintenance, the compounding taxes, and the broker fee, that $200,000 profit doesn't just shrink. It practically vanishes.
Your real rate of return is astonishingly close to zero. Sometimes, adjusted for inflation,
Would the traditional economic machine, which relies so heavily on your immobility and your debt, even survive the shock? Think about that until our next deep dive.